Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Crime Centric. This being a show where I talk about crime dramas that I watch. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about the latest episode of Elementary. So, I always talk about it. I always like it when shows kind of bring the real world into it, because obviously this episode involves a dude named Bruce being murdered, but it turns out he has a sex bot named Skylar, which is interesting, and it might be a witness to the murder. It's actually kind of messed up and interesting that actually Skylar is actually based off his ex-girlfriend, which is weird and creepy because he didn't get her permission, and that's a whole thing in itself. Is like, man, and she's like, he even said the line of like, oh, you should be flattered. It's like, that's not the type of response you should have in that situation, but whatever, dude. But I love what like, so many interactions. First of all, the fact of the matter is, like, Sherlock jokingly, because, like, obviously the dude who's running is like, oh, no, this isn't just about, sex, which, let's all be fair here, it plays a huge component in this. And I will admit, obviously there is the aspect of, like, companionship. It's just kind of like the girlfriend experience, so I'll give that. But you can even see it in Jones, and even kind of in Sherlock's eyes, are just kind of, I mean, obviously he's been the most okay about it, like Bell and, Watson are a little like about it, but yeah, it's like, but then he tries the dude who runs Perfect Mate Robotics is kind of like, we do it. There's actually ladies who want this situation too, like, a robotic companion. I just love that's the whole thing too. Trying to justify to make it seem like it's not just like a male thing, like it not like you really need the justification, but still, but also being in a show like goes, yep, you're doing God's work here, aren't you? Kind of saying it a little like sarcastically. He's like, I like to think we are, and I'm just like, oh, dude, that's so good. But then they tried to use her as a witness, and it's like, oh, Belle's talking to her, and she's talking about making love and stuff. I legitimately was doing spit takes during that scene, because I was just like, it legitimately made me like almost spit out what I was like. It was so good. I think the humor was on point in this episode because of just the awkwardness. Plus, it's not just him there. There's also Sherlock and Watson. You just have Watson just being so disappointed in the situation. I love the awkwardness. It's so good. And just Bill just being so uncomfortable about it. I thought that's so interesting. But then it all turns out that this might have something to do with teleportation, which is interesting because, it broke down the science fiction. Obviously, teleportation doesn't work the way I never would have thought. I thought it was probably like, oh, it breaks down the molecules and blah, 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 I guess to a certain extent. Nevertheless, it's basically it copies so when you're teleporting, what it does, it copies you and sends a copy of you somewhere else, whereas the original you dies. That's actually how teleportation works. Never knew that. I just thought it was it pulls apart your atoms and teleport. I think that's the more science fictional realm of how it works, which obviously teleportation still falls in that category, but I think that's the more realistic approach to it. You would basically be 3D printing yourself. It's kind of interesting because dark matter kind of touches on that, because you can kind of make there's a TV show called Dark Matter that kind of, it's not really teleportation, but it's you can make a perfect clone of yourself type of thing. It kind of almost works it's a whole thing. I'm not about to nerd out and go down that route. So I don't know if you've never seen the show Dark Matter or watched the show Dark Matter. It's in this sad place where it got canceled, but still, it's really worth checking out. Just a lot of interest. Here I am shilling out another show. I do apologize. But nevertheless, I just thought that was just kind of a fascinating thing. And I love that the dude running it is kind of a little conspiracy nuttish, but at the same time, it's also a singularity con. I like that being a thing. But it turns out it might not have been as nuts as it seems, because it kind of seems like that might be the reason why Bruce got killed. And it turns out potentially that was the reason, because it turns out, because Bruce had recognized the schematics that he was talking about, because the dude, that particular dude, had gotten sent the schematics and paid for them. And it turns out that Bruce, as well as 3 of his other colleagues, were working under this professor named Fukada, were working on this project. It's basically like a 3D printer, 3D printing, teleportation like that. They were the ones that created the device and such. It is actually incredible when you actually see it in work, because obviously Sherlock talks to his friend Klaus, who's really an expert in this area. They 3D printed a chocolate bunny. It even copied the imperfection of the bitten off ear, that I was like, that's some next level stuff. But at the same time, it could be used for good stuff. It could be done for amazing things. It's oh yeah, 3D printing medicines needed to help people miles and miles away, all across the world. But it can also be used to transport deadly viruses and stuff like that as well. So obviously there's a huge drawback to it. Fukada ended up getting taken by the government, the military in particular, and they had to call in a good old pal, General Alvaro, which I love. Even Gregson being like, no, you don't have to worry about us selling your secret. That's still nice and safe with us. We haven't told anyone. It's like, oh, this is just us asking a friend for assistance, for a favor. I just love just the slyness with the way Gregson says that. Just like, yeah, we kind of have you by the balls because of your particular what would be the word? Your particular taste in what you do off hours, So, which I mean, once again, no shame. You do what you do as long as you're not hurting anybody. Who cares, right? So it's interesting because it turns out one behind all this might actually be one of his students. Interestingly enough, because it's kind of interesting how the whole thing works, because it's like the moment the government finds something, they're like, hey, this might be potentially dangerous. We're going to be the ones to sink our teeth into it, shut that down in a sense of like, hey, you can work on this, but you can't say anything about it. And if you continue working on it after being told not to work on it anymore, or you spill the beans on it, like in this particular situation, then you get pulled up like Fukada, because charges can be brought against you, which is like, well, that's a whole crazy system. Like I said, the more and more you learn, but because Fukada himself never actually, because when it came to the patent for this stuff, he kind of underrated how much of an impact his students helped. They all helped him make this, but he made it seem like they helped out a little. It was mainly me. And they found out about it. All of his students, including Bruce, kind of were calling him out in emails and stuff, because the whole thought process is that basically by killing Bruce found out that, by breaking the secrecy on this whole situation, they can publicly start making money off of it, is what the whole thing was about this. And that's what happened, because leaking those files wasn't a team effort. That was actually something Gwen did by herself. Bruce found out, she killed him for it. It's interesting how this all ended up getting found out too, because Skylar had a song saved in her system that wasn't something that Bruce himself would normally listen to. And it turns out that was the ringtone from Gwen's phone that it picked up. So I thought that was kind of fascinating, which is interesting considering the fact that she was the first one to be like, no, we've got to help them, guys. She was all for it. And it's like, oh my God, the files are gone. I don't know what's happening. It's like, wow, that's, in retrospect, it's like, yeah, that's pretty, that's always the type of thing. It's like, oh yeah, the person who's so intent on helping with the investigation, got to be a little worried about them. But, so that was kind of interesting. I love tying this into the fact is that Sherlock brought Skylar home, and even once again Watson being uncomfortable, just like, what is that here? And she's like, what's up with the clothes? Yeah, he's like, oh yeah, I had to put them on, if I didn't put her in these clothes, it would have been weird to put her on a subway. She's like, why are you even bringing her in the subway in the first place? Why are you bringing her here? Isn't she evidence? I love that whole thing, because Sherlock was having intellectual conversations with her and stuff like that, and she's like, oh, what's your favorite position? And he makes a joke about chess and stuff like that. Just like I said, I love that. Just you have Watson just being so annoyed by it. It's so good. Now, kind of on the flip side of this episode, it deals with Bell. The fact of the matter is he's got to try and take in some last-minute courses so he can meet the requirements needed to kind of do the martial training that he wanted to do. But sadly, the class won't let him because the professor is denying him. But it's like, no, it's saying it's full, but the fact of the matter is someone I know got in. Turns out this dude meets Marcus. He's like, yeah, it's not against you. It's like, I know where you work, and it's the company you keep. I was like, oh, is it someone in major crimes? The script I was like, is it Sherlock, or is this just going to be major crimes in general? Does this have anything to do? I'm guessing it's like, nope, it 100% has to deal with Sherlock, because Sherlock and Baines worked together back in the day when he was working in Scotland Yard. And Sherlock just chalked it up to, it's like, I was kind of an asshole because I was on heroin and stuff like that back then. It's like, it doesn't excuse it, but I'm going to go apologize. Because he's like, yeah, the fact of the matter is I wasn't the person I am standing before you. And Joan jokes like, yeah, you're Mr. Congeniality. I butchered that so hard just then. But he goes and apologizes. He's like, oh, trying to be the bigger man. The guy's like, you think that's what this is about because you treated me like shit years ago? I don't care about that. What I really care about, the fact is, you solved that particular case. He's like, Sherlock's like, wait, what? Yeah, I could have solved that case if you gave me a day or two. You were on heroin. You were kicked off of it. You shouldn't even been on the case. And Sherlock's face is so good. It's just kind of like, wait, what? That's what this was all about. That's the feelings he's been harboring on. It also speaks volume. He had those files on deck. That must mean he carries those suckers everywhere he goes. The fact of the matter is, even as this professor in this other position, he is bitter about it because he blames Sherlock for, it's like, because that was such a big case that my career could have boosted off of that. And because there was a previous colleague he came across in the past who got super uppity about the fact is, it's like, oh, you and me, we did good work back then. And he was super pissy about Sherlock, like, leaving because without Sherlock around, he couldn't get the recognition he probably normally would have gotten with Sherlock helping him. His career didn't go to the highest point. Like, I vividly remember something like that. I can't remember who. Then I guess I shouldn't be using more vividly. I gotta be more specific with what I say. Vaguely is it's a more better descriptor. Nevertheless, but that was just like shocking to me. And it's like you keep the files on, you're just ready to pull them out and just be like, see, apologize for that. With Sherlock, is like, why should I apologize for doing good work? If I messed up or something, sure. If it was a personal thing, I was willing to apologize. But for being good at what I do, you want to blame me for that? That I saw the case fasten you? Really? That heavily a dick move. And so Sherlock's decision to handle the situation was to confront him. It's like, hey, here, I got you a job running security at this particular business that's getting started up by a friend of mine. The fact of the matter is, job gives you you're going to get paid very wealthy, a very good amount. It kind of makes up for the fact is maybe your career didn't go the way that you thought it would, but you'll leave behind your position as professor. Someone else will take over your class and Bell will kind of get brought in. He said, but if you decide not to go down this route, if you don't accept the situation, then you'll make an enemy of me. And I thought it was such a beautiful thing that Sherlock said. He is like, the fact of the matter is, I've met a lot of people who've come to call me friend. Do I deserve that title? No, but they give me that position anyway as a friend. And so, like, basically, Sherlock's like, I will fight tooth and nail for the people that are important to me because they put their trust in me and I put my trust in them, and I will do whatever it takes for their sake. And the fact is that he was willing to do this. He went out of his way he could have found probably a different avenue to handle this Baines situation, but he handled it this particular way, which I think is the right way to handle it. But it's like, if you don't take this, you'll make an enemy. You thought we were enemies before. No, we weren't. But you will not like it when we really are enemies. So I thought that's kind of a nice thing. And obviously love the ending where Belle is walking behind Skylar, and she's like, Marcus, help me. The fact of the matter is, help me get out of here. The fact of the matter is, I'm the one that was behind it all. I was like, what? I was like, someone's messing with him. But I was like, wait, where's this going? It's like, if you want me to, I can kill Baines too. And then he was like, Marcus was like, Sherlock. I'm like, He programmed it to read the script. And I love, like, the whole situation. I'm like, okay, if you sit, give me a minute and then send in Watson. He's like, are you better? He's like, oh yeah, I'm not going to miss this golden opportunity. He's like, you know what? I see Captain Gregson there, and Sherlock say, even better. I love it. I love that, like, they're just bonding and playing around, like, especially these past 2 episodes, the back and forth between them has been so good. I love that, dude. That's so good with that whole Skylar situation, dude. Overall, like, a great episode. Lots of fun. I mean, obviously, serious aspects, but that just a lot of nature in this episode was super good. So, once again, just leading you more and more. You're like, oh, this is so much fun. But then you're kind of like, oh, but it makes you a little sad too. Because it's like, once again, it's like, oh, but Belle's going to be leaving soon. And it's just like, that's going to be inching closer. Like, I kind of figured, like, it still hasn't really been an official time frame in that. I mean, in the sense of in the show. But once again, I talk about it. I'm pretty sure it's probably going to be like a season finale thing. Maybe it'll be sooner. We'll see. But, man, oh man, I'm very interested to see what the next episode has in store. Do note that next week, Elementary will be returning to its regular schedule on Mondays only. So do keep that in mind. But really, that's all I want to talk about in this episode. Till the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day and good